Hey, what's going on, pre-Chiro students? It's Dr. Ben Glass. I'm a chiropractor. I'm here today with another practicing chiropractor. We're going to try and shed some light on the path and maybe just answer some questions that we think you should be asking yourself on considering which direction you want to go in life and how you might develop yourself into becoming a chiropractor. So, Dr. Paul, can we get you started by just introducing yourself, sharing what your upbringing was like, and what attracted you to becoming a chiropractor?
Yeah, I grew up in Winter Park, Florida. I've been in practice 2.5 decades now. Um, and I was in the military and actually had some back issues. Went to a chiropractor when I was in the military. And when I got out, knew I wanted to go into healthcare and just naturally gravitated towards this profession more
Mhm.
than any other. And
Mm.
it's been a great ride. So,
Can you
yeah.
talk about being in the military and maybe speaking to some people out there who are looking for a career path that might bring them fulfillment and a path of purpose, which I believe serving in the military is very much encased in. Can you talk about how being in the military could potentially help you on your path to becoming a chiropractor?
Um, I'm not as much sure how it will transition you into becoming a chiropractor, but once you are already in school and you're in practice, it instills uh, a lot of discipline. I mean, I think I just told you a minute ago, I'm a 4:30 a.m. guy, and I'm very regimented, and it works for me. I don't change my routine a whole lot. If something's not working, obviously I do, but that is really what it ingrained in me. And also, truthfully, the ability to serve, to uh, give of myself without necessarily expecting something in return.
Hmm. Hmm. And also, can you speak about the physicality of being a chiropractor, and also just what you said you were naturally gravitated towards chiropractic? Can you talk about that moment and what was kind of going through your head and in your heart and what you were looking for and what you found?
It was just a really natural fit. I mean, I grew up and I played sports my whole life, and I've been athletic my whole life, and still am. And I'm 55 years old, but still kicking pretty strong. And when I started looking at healthcare professions, uh, this really just sort of fit my mold. I didn't want to go to med school. I didn't see myself as a medical doctor. I wasn't really interested in dentistry. Optometry, I was not very interested in. And the being able to work with structure, with form, that's what really drew me into this. And having had that experience myself. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's what got me into it, and and it's what I love. I love biomechanics. I love kinesiology.
Hmm. Can you talk about what your experience was like in school? What types of influences you might have had, maybe mentors, and also specific things that you studied that were of interest that you really went deep with?
Well, school was a blur. Honestly, I started and I was in my first year, and my wife and I had been married for about a year, and she said those three famous words, "Honey, I'm pregnant." And from that point on, it took on a life of its own. It was basically, let's just get to the finish line, and which I did. And if you've got a newborn, then I think everybody realizes that you go several years without sleep, and
Mhm.
and you just get through it at the time. So. When I was in school, I was taking a full load. I think at that point it was 25 hours a quarter, working two jobs, with a wife and a newborn, and it just, I didn't. Um, it just, like I said, it was a blur.
Mhm.
Uh, I think one of the cool things about Life Force has been reconnecting with some of the people that I did know when I was in school. Some of the professors, like B.J. Harmon, who was my favorite professor at Life, and he's actively involved in Life Force, and I look forward to seeing him every few months.
Mhm. What was he your
Really cool
teacher
guy.
in? What did he
Spinal
share with you?
Anatomy, and which was my highest board score, and he taught a philosophy class that I was in.
Mm.
Great guy, great guy. So.
Yeah, you could argue that the philosophy course and the spinal anatomy course are the two most important courses that you take as a chiropractic student, or could be considered. What are some recommendations that you have that current students maybe focus in on, or hone in on, or how are you going to support a student that maybe comes to you seeking advice, seeking mentorship?
Uh, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing with Life Force is dealing with the students that are in the program. Um, because it's like I said, I mean, they don't really understand what it's like to be out in practice at this point. And is it the technique that's most important? Is it philosophy? Is it business acumen? I would argue also that learning psychology is very important because dealing with a number of patients on a daily basis, they bring things to the table that you might not necessarily think you would get in a chiropractic office. And understanding how to encourage people, keep it positive, and keep them flowing and moving is extremely important.
Hmm.
The one of the big things I get asked about a lot of times is technique. What's the most important technique? What technique do you use? And my response typically at this point in my career, is you don't play around to golf with one club in the bag. You play with 14. And all the techniques out there have a different reason for using them, and you need to learn them all. Every patient's different.
It's a
So
great message. That's a great message. I agree 100%. You have to have many different approaches, because as chiropractors, we don't get to choose who come into our office. We see a diversity of different cases, different types of people with different backgrounds and experiences, but also injuries and also goals in life, things that they're wanting to accomplish. And our job is really to meet them where they're at. And so having a familiarity with how to work with different populations, whether it's geriatric, pediatric, or athletes. Obviously, you can market and attract a specific group of people that you want to work with. But at the end of the day, people can call you and come in, and you don't get to choose who they are. Can you talk about your experience in practice today? What is the flow like? What are the types of people you're seeing and working with?
yeah, I mean, I've been in my current town for 17 years. We've expanded twice, and are looking at doing it again. I currently have two other associates in with me. One gentleman has been in practice for 26 years. Outstanding clinical doctor. His name's David Arnold. Really good clinician. And I've got a young girl that is 2 years out of school. And at this point in my career, I'm not really the pediatrics guy anymore. So I wanted to hire somebody that would come in and was really good with kids, really good with moms. So I looked for a female associate to bring in, and she's done a really good job. She's 2 years out and she's got a very bright future. It's Dr. Alyssa Kurdiak.
Mhm.
But my practice is probably 90 to 95% referral based. We see a ton of patients, and we get everything that walks through the door. Everything, sports stuff, uh, Medicare stuff, personal injury stuff, just whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Just a wide range, a family practice.
Mhm.
So.
Can you talk about what allows you to have a 90% referral based practice in today's world? It's so important that we cultivate relationships, and it sounds like you have them coming from multiple angles. Are they from lawyers? Are they from other doctors in the field? Are they from your current people that you see in your practice? Are they from previous people you see in your practice? And how do you maintain those relationships? Because I think that is something that students need to become conscious of, that even today, right now, with the way that the internet works, you can reach out to people in the communities that you consider working in one day and start to cultivate those relationships. How have you built those throughout the years and maintained them?
I think the answer to the first question is yes. I mean, I get referrals from all of the above. Not as much, I don't do as much personal injury anymore because I just got to a point where I just don't enjoy it. What comes in, but we don't look for it. I get a lot of referrals from medical doctors. I've got, several under care that are patients, and they refer their patients over. We get some PT referrals in the community, a lot of existing patients, former patients, I think anybody that's been in practice for a while is familiar with the phenomena of the person that comes in one time will never come back again and refer you patients for 15 years. Uh, Go figure that one out. But, I don't know how we get referrals. I expect to get them. And I have that level of expectation, and we just do. Um, and I live in a town of about 100,000 people, and I know a lot of folks. So
Yeah, can you talk
that's
about putting down roots in your community and the importance of staying where you plan to practice for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I was a big city kid. Okay, I've never lived in a smaller town before. Like I said, our community is about 100,000 people. And honestly, when we first moved here, I had a 5-year plan. I bought a 57-year-old clinic. We were going to pump up the volume, sell it, turn a profit, and move on to the next great adventure. 5 years rolled by, and I realized that a lot of these people coming in here had supported me, loved me, referred to me. I'd built a practice, and I couldn't walk out on them. And I mean, 17 years later, I'm a lifer here. It works for us. It's like I said, we're an hour and 20 minutes away from the beach, so we have a place down there. We spend our weekends there, and but I mean, we made a commitment to stay here. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I mean, when you develop a patient base and you give so much of yourself to them, and they give back to you, it's very difficult to pick up and leave. It really, truly is. For me, it was.
hmm When you're
So.
talking about giving so much of yourself to the patient base that you've seen throughout the years, can you describe some of the details of what it means to give of yourself as a chiropractor for people who are really unfamiliar with chiropractic, maybe just gaining exposure to what it's like to be in practice? Can you kind of give us some details of what your interactions are like, how often you see people, what a relationship can look like with somebody who comes into your office?
Man, I tell you what, physical, mental, and emotional, that's what you give of yourself. I mean, um, it's like I said, I've done this a long time, and physically, it is taking a toll on me at this point. But that's okay. I love what I do. I love to adjust. I've got patients that I have seen every week for 17 years. I've got patients I see 3 or 4 times a year for 17 years. And everybody brings something different to the table. Uh, I've dealt with people with horrific cancer diagnosis that they knew they weren't going to survive. And I've dealt with people that come in and have had sports injuries and are trying to get back on the field and play the next day. It's just a broad spectrum of things. And I think the biggest thing for me is I take it to heart. I mean, I wake up, it's like a nightly thing. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and somebody's name pops into my head, and it's okay. I need to check on that person. I need to check on them. I need to make sure they're okay, because what I found over the years, if you start thinking about somebody, you better call them, because there's something going on. There's some reason in the universe that there's a connection there.
Couldn't agree more. Can you talk about your lifestyle, the work-life balance as a chiropractor? Obviously, you're an entrepreneur. You get to design your own lifestyle, design the life that you want to live. Can you talk about how that's evolved over time? Because you said as a student, you had a newborn, you had 2 jobs, you were working, you were going to graduate school. That was one way of living, and that might resonate with a lot of people that are currently grinding it out in school today. But can you talk about how it can change over time, and you can really have a nice work-life balance?
Yes, and we're empty nesters. We just became empty nesters about a year and a half ago, and so at this point for us, we've got a lot of freedom. My wife and I do. Um, grinding it out is a great way of describing it. And I grinded for my first 7 years in practice. And I have been very fortunate to have some of the best mentors that I can possibly think of. In the early part of my practice, I don't know if you're familiar with the Cole family in Western Tennessee. Don Cole was the president of the Tennessee Chiropractic Association, and he's still one of my very dear friends. And I learned so much from him about how to run a business, how to treat my patients, and he definitely was a massive influence. And over the last few years, just as much of an influence has been my friendship with Eric Plasker and the 100-Year Lifestyle. And I had a lot of the concepts of the 100-Year Lifestyle that we were already doing and teaching, but I didn't really have it all tied together. And Eric's helped me tie that together and sort of focus on moving my career forward at this point. Um, the early on there was no balance between life and practice. It was just you got to do what you got to do to grow. And now I find that I've got to take more time off so that I'm fresh. And I've done a much better job of that over the past few years. Love to go to the beach. Love to go snow skiing. Getting ready to go next week to Utah. So
Awesome.
went to Jackson Hole a month ago. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice do you have for maybe a high school or college student who's considering this pathway? How would you help them get clear on whether this is the right path for them, or how they can better take a couple of steps towards this direction to know whether it resonates with them or not?
I think one of the things that really makes me crazy is the number of younger people that I talk to, and I'll ask them, what do you want to major in? What do you want to do? And I hear physical therapy. And you start talking, and I like physical therapy. I've got a lot of friends that are physical therapists, don't get me wrong, but you start talking to them, and what they really want to do is they want to do chiropractic. They just don't know how, they don't understand that yet. It's not in their lexicon. It's not in their train of thought. And one of the things that I'm really excited about right now, I have a young lady that is a prospective student. I think she's going to go to chiropractic college, and she's in school at Troy University, which is about 45 minutes away. My son goes there also, same year. She's in the kinesiology program, and my office just got approved by Troy University to do internships for students to rotate through. So I'm very excited about the possibility of tapping into that and getting some of these kids that may be so interested in physical therapy to get to share the experience of chiropractic. Because honestly, I believe when you do, there's no contest. I love the aspects. So many healthcare practices right now, medical, dentistry, physical therapy, have been consolidated. They're working for big corporations, big groups. They have no autonomy. The great thing about chiropractic, if you want a big group practice, you can do it. If you want a franchise of clinics, it's right there for you. If you want to practice by yourself with no staff, go for it. You make your own pathway. And that's kind of been my journey, and it's what I enjoy doing. And I think a lot of students coming along want to do that, and they just don't understand.
No, well said, and absolutely one of the key hallmark objectives of this project, pre-Chiro, that we're working on right now, is to create infrastructure so that if there is a large uptick on people that become familiar with the concept that becoming a chiropractor is a different pathway, is a different option, because right now, like you said, it's not represented. It doesn't currently exist in the consciousness, in the area of kinesiology. It's not really being promoted by guidance counselors, by introductory teachers that are contextualizing the different possible pathways that students can take. And what you just described, there's a wide diversity of pathways that you can take as a chiropractor, but letting students that are in kinesiology programs, that are in pre-med programs, know, hey, there is another profession out there that you probably haven't considered that might align more with your values, that might align more with how you see yourself helping people in the future. So I want to thank you for having that that prospective student there, because I think that it's really key that we leverage that opportunity and make that experience count. So, having maybe your second year out associate pay close attention to the different specific activities that you're bringing this person through. That's basically what I've tried to do with the apprenticeship part of the pre-Chiro program. And I can send you some materials that I have for incoming prospective students to just have with them in the office, so that they can kind of familiarize themselves with how an office functions before they show up. And maybe obviously your office is going to be a unique experience compared to other offices, but maybe it becomes a way for them to organize their experiences at your office. I think that's important.
I think one thing too that I'd like to mention is, and I think it hurts us in recruiting students. If you Google the income of a chiropractor, Google spits it up at like 65 or $70,000 or something in that range. I don't know where they get these numbers from. You can make a lot of money doing this. And I know that, I don't want to get into my personal income, but it's probably 4 times higher than the average physical therapist or a top dog PT. I mean, it's just, it's not what you see that spits up on the screen, I don't believe to be true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
another problematic piece is when you search becoming a chiropractor right now, you're either going to get a Wikipedia article, which is not necessarily clear and concise, or you're going to get this company called, I believe it's chirobase.com, with a warning to pre-chiropractic students, with a bunch of information that doesn't necessarily have any experience behind it, but really it's just public slander against the profession. And it really does stop students right there and have them turn a different direction.
you just brought up something that I had not thought about, because over the years that I've been in practice, the discrimination, the bias against chiropractors from our colleagues in the medical profession has diminished so much. Our relationship is so much better and on a more stable footing. But I hadn't thought about the bias that occurs possibly online before students even go to chiro school when they're searching the information that they're getting. And I think that's a very valid point. We won on one level, but we haven't even realized what the fight is on the next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that if you look at the internet and how it's functioning nowadays, hashtags, pre-PT, there's a number of companies that are focused on pre-PT, that are
Mhm.
independent, that
Mhm.
have hashtags pre-PT grind or pre-PT student, and it's in upwards of 600 plus thousand hashtags. That means that each post is one hashtag. There's been over 600,000 posts on pre-PT, pre-physical therapy. I just passed 100 posts with pre-Chiro, and I think that it's an oversight on the profession not to use hashtags that promote pre-Chiro, pre-chiropractic, pre-Chiro student, pre-chiropractic training, something that basically just makes us delivers a presence in the audience that we seek to really speak to. Um, can you talk about some of the functions that Life Force promotes for their doctors, and how they support doctors in really supporting prospective students?
You get out of life force what you put into it. Okay. Um, in my personal opinion, and I don't want to slight anybody that I know because I know some extremely powerful and wonderful female chiros out there. I think Maggie Rogers, that directs Life Force, is one of the most powerful women in this profession. If you want to talk about somebody that's passionate about chiropractic and on point, that's Maggie. She throws the best parties. She gives the best talks and she recruits the most people. I mean, and for me, the ability to get involved in a group of other like minded doctors that have been doing this for forever was just invaluable. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out when I mention it, but, Ribs, Chuck Ribley, Joe Lupo, the Hands, Kevin Fogarty, obviously Eric, the Paxton family, great folks. They don't necessarily pull you in, but if you show that you want to be involved with them, they'll take you in and open up for you, and it's a life changing experience. The first life force that I ever went to, I came back. Do you know Joe Lupo up in Michigan? You know the name.
I've heard his name. I don't know him.
Yeah, Joe's 80 years old, going on 35. He just retired from snow skiing this past year, and I think he's going to come out of retirement. He's given an incredible amount of money, time, and energy to Life University and this profession over the years, and just so much respect for him. And I went to my first Life Force, had never met him, came home, was sitting out on my deck on a Sunday afternoon grilling salmon, and Joe called me out of the blue and didn't call me to do anything. He's just like, hey, I enjoyed meeting you. Let me get your email address. I want to send you some info on a marketing program that I'm doing or whatever. And it's just been that type of thing for me. A good group of individuals that are giving of themselves when they really don't have to. That's what it's about.
When you look out at our profession, the chiropractic profession, would you say there's a really small group of people that are doing the majority of the work? Because I often hear individual names and it's not really embedded in the culture, that when you become a graduate, when you're in practice and you're successful, that you give back to the profession by getting involved in programs like Life Force. Would you say that there's a huge group of people that are involved in the Life Force project? Or would you say that there is a lot of people, but it's not as many as there should be, given the quality of life that chiropractic is afforded its graduates from that school?
There are a lot of numbers of doctors that are Life Force doctors. There is a small core that are doing the heavy lifting. Once again, going back to Eric and the 100-year lifestyle, with what he is trying to do right now for this profession. I mean, Eric's one of my dear friends. He's probably 5'8". He's not a big guy, but he's put the weight of the world on his shoulders in this profession, and he's trying to carry it forward. And there's a lot of heavy lifting by not a lot of people, and we need more people to get involved. One of the things that I had to learn throughout my career is it's not all about you. I mean, you get involved in practice, you're on an island, and you've got tunnel vision, you got your blinders on. But once you take those blinders off and you start giving back to the profession, it comes back so many times over, so many times over. And that's been the lesson for me that I've learned.
How can people get involved with Life Force? How can you kind of give an introduction as to like what the first, second, and third step is, and what the expectations are of somebody who's a Life Force doc?
Well, the information is on the website. You can link to it through the school website, through Life. You can call myself, probably Jay Hand up in New York, and definitely Maggie Rogers. And I can, I know she wouldn't mind me giving her information as far as getting involved with Life Force. The expectations when you get involved with them, they don't really put it on you. It is what you make of it. If you want to do what I've done, and since I started, I've missed one Life Force, and that was when Hurricane Michael came through here and it tore everything up. We had no infrastructure, and we canceled. One of the best things I've done is about 2 years ago, for the first time ever, I took my wife and she got involved in my profession with me. And she started going to Life Force, and now she circles the dates on the calendar at the beginning of the year for the following year when we're going to have it. And it's part of her life also, very important to her. And it's been something that we've been able to do together. And it's I've told Maggie this before. It's made me a better doctor. It's made me a better husband, and it's just been a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak about some of the duties or responsibilities of a Life Force doc, or what are some of the activities that you've engaged in that it's allowed you to engage in, and some of the opportunities that you have to impact the next generation, or what are you actually doing with students to help them along?
Well, a student recruitment event can be, it can be as small or as big as you want it to be. It can be sitting down with a couple of prospective students and explaining chiropractic to them. It can be, we had an event where Dr. Plasker came down a couple of years ago, and we had, I don't know, maybe 100 people in an event room that I have right next door to my practice. and we had a lot of prospective students in there. Life showed up, they gave them information. So it's basically just creating opportunities to meet prospective students and try to usher them along the pathway to finding this profession and this wonderful lifestyle that we all have. Um, and my goal has been to try to get involved at the university level with some of the schools in the area. And we've been working on it for a couple of years, and it seems like now we're starting to get breakthroughs, as I mentioned earlier. Because I think that's where it is. My area is quite different than, say, Dr. Hand, Jay Hand up in New York. He's got 7 million people to recruit from. I have a public university 45 minutes away. I mean, it's a very different. Or Lou and Lori Briegel, they're right there in Atlanta, right near the school. It's not a stretch for them to get students in and say, hey, yeah, it's a great profession. 20 minutes away, you can be on campus. So it presents different challenges, but that's right now. That's my what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get involved at the university level and reach the students that are in their freshman and sophomore year and get them on this pathway.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a great point. I remember reading a book called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, where he recommends that if you're a good student, that you choose to be a big fish in a small pond as opposed to a small fish in a big pond. And what I mean by that is that sometimes when they're at these smaller schools, it minimizes the distractions. It really cuts down on the amount of options that are available in regards to resources. And I think that you could be just as successful as Dr. Han up in New York, because you're able to have a greater presence, because there's just less distraction from other professions promoting themselves. Just putting it out there. I want to thank you for your time. It's really helpful, I think, for you to talk about the stuff you've been talking about. I'd love for you to just reflect for a moment on that hurricane that you said came through your community, and how becoming a chiropractor, I mean, we live in a time right now where we're dealing with a lot of adversity. And I think that it's really helpful to reflect on how being a chiropractor helps you deal with adversity and adapt. Having a hurricane come through and rip out your infrastructure, what did that sort of mean for the community, and how was being a chiropractor helpful for you being able to still serve your community in that difficult time?
Well, I think I alluded to earlier that one of the hats that you wear that people don't necessarily think about when they get into practice is the psychology hat. And when, we were fortunate, our city, about half of it was just torn up. But down on the coastline, it was gone. I mean, it was just gone. It was like somebody dropped a nuclear warhead on it down there. I had a call from the wife of a chiropractor. They lived in Mexico Beach, and he practiced in Panama City. And I don't know how she got my number, but she called me and she said, "We've lost our house, we've lost our practice. He's 57 years old. Even if we rebuild and start over, we don't know if our patients are coming back here because everything's destroyed." And as a healthcare provider, generally, and a chiropractor specifically, it's your job to be strong and to provide comfort to these people that have lost so much and are having to start over again. And that's what we tried to do. And, as far as COVID goes, we've been very blessed here. I mean, what we've gone through in South Alabama and Florida is nothing probably like what you've gone through in California or New York. So we had about a 2-month dip, and then things are not normal, but they're better. And so we've been very fortunate. I've been blessed, and I can't complain about that. And that's been boy. I guess we never really thought we'd practice through a pandemic, did we?
Can you reflect on maybe the 1918 flu pandemic and how chiropractors are so familiar with practicing in a pandemic and the importance of being a chiropractor in the pandemic?
The 1918 flu, probably not, but boy, COVID-19, I think it's fresh on everybody's mind. Obviously, we're still living it. You know, the being able to get information to people that maybe they're not necessarily getting from um, mainstream sources, trying to alleviate the fear that has gone on in this. And to me, what I've seen is the segments of the population that have been so severely affected psychologically and even in some cases physically, the elderly population, obviously, but even the younger ones in their 20s, I've seen a lot of them that it seems to have changed them in some way. I mean, they're it's taken away some of their confidence, and you know, just trying to reassure people, you know,
Mhm.
explain to them that there is a connection between immunology and chiropractic. Uh, if you get adjusted, if you live a healthy lifestyle, if you do the things that you need to make yourself a least vulnerable person, then even if you do get COVID, you're more likely to have a better response and not be as sick.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I want to thank you for your time, and
yeah,
I appreciate everything you've touched on a number of things that are really relevant to the prospective student. So,
I hope
um,
it was helpful.
absolutely, it was helpful, and yeah, I mean, who you are and what you embody is really, it speaks for itself. You didn't necessarily have to prepare for this conversation. I knew that Dr. Eric connecting us was going to mean that I was going to get somebody that was clear about who they were, what they were up to, and I want to thank you for sharing that, because I think that the more role models that we can develop in the eyes of the next generation so that they can just really tap in and feel the energy and the presence that you have, and the caring that you have for the next generation. I think we really do need to exude a level of caring that hasn't currently or previously existed for the prospective student audience. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the work you do, and I hope we can meet in person at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I anticipate Life Force is going to be a program and a project that I collaborate with, hopefully one day, and get involved with as well. So
Well, anything I can do to help you out, you just let me know.
I appreciate that. Thank
All
you.
right.
All right.
Have a good one.